Hello, recappers. Today's movie starts with David Quiche, a professor of practical criticism who discusses literature on a live show every week. Though he is advanced in age, he remains passionate about his field. Consuela Castillo, one of his students, is well-mannered and carries herself with elegance, which David finds striking. To avoid complications, David is careful not to have personal interactions with his students, especially since the school has posted a sexual misconduct hotline number. However, he always hosts a cocktail party for the class after grades are released. During the party, he can't seem to take his eyes off Consuela and eventually walks up to her. Consuela urges David to be less formal and call her by her first name since they're not in class. David admits there's something about her that naturally invites formality. He sees an elegant austerity in her, which surprises Consuela. As they talk, she shares a bit about her background, and David is captivated. Eventually, he invites her to the theater, where he reviews plays for a magazine, and she gladly accepts. The next morning, while playing tennis, David tells his friend George about the invitation. However, George doesn't see the point. He advises David to keep his sexual relationship simple, but David feels Consuela is different, someone who needs to be wooed. Later that night, David and his lover Carolyn share a passionate evening. Afterward, David receives a call but ignores it, after seeing it's from his estranged son, Kenny. Despite being a successful doctor with a happy marriage and kids, Kenny still blames David for abandoning his mother. Although David has tried to fix their relationship, it remains strained. The next day, David takes Consuela to the theater. After the play, he invites her for drinks, but she feels shy about being seen in public with a well-known figure and prefers to avoid attention. Instead, David invites her to his house. At his home, David plays the piano for Consuela, and she compliments his skill. He then takes her to his dark room, revealing he once pursued photography, but has been too busy to continue. Later, as they look through a book together, David finds himself unable to resist her beauty and the way she makes him feel. The moment turns passionate, and they sleep together. The next day, David updates George, thinking he's just a fleeting experience for Consuela. He believes she'll only remember him as the older man who introduced her to culture. But George tells him to stop worrying about aging and be grateful for the experience. However, their relationship doesn't end there. David and Consuela grow closer, sharing many intimate moments and enjoying their passion. One day, after a fun time together, Consuela asks David how many women he has been with. He avoids the question and turns it back on her. She admits to having been with 5 boys and says the most extreme thing she ever did was being with 2 at once. David is surprised, but she dismisses it as a reckless teenage phase. Soon, jealousy starts to take root in David. He feels the need to talk to her every day, fearing that a younger man will eventually take her away. That fear doesn't stop him from kissing her passionately in public. While at a diner with George, David confesses that being with Consuela makes him realize how different they are. George advises him to end the relationship, believing Consuela will eventually leave and that David will be held back by his attachment. He suggests David take her to a romantic spot and break up with her. Instead, the next day, David does the opposite. He promises to take Consuela on trips around the world. Later, when he invites her to dinner, she says she already has plans with her brother, someone David didn't even know existed. It makes him realize how little he truly knows about her. After dropping her off, they share a passionate kiss, but afterward, David can't stop wondering what she's up to. He goes to the club she mentioned, and when she sees him there, she's clearly upset. David quickly lies, saying he was just passing through, but Consuela doesn't believe him. She warns that if he wants the relationship to last, he needs to trust her. Trying to fix things, David promises to call her later, but Consuela insists she'll call him when she's ready. 2 days later, David has lost all hope, convinced that his jealousy has ruined everything. But to his surprise, Consuela calls. They meet for dinner, and she says she's been thinking about their relationship. She asks David what he truly wants from her, and if he's ever imagined a future together. She points out that he moves from one relationship to the next, without forming real bonds. David admits he's afraid of their 30-year age gap. He believes it's only a matter of time before she realizes she has her whole life ahead of her. Despite that, they end up spending another passionate night together. A few days later, Carolyn shows up unexpectedly. They share an intimate moment, as David sees her as a reminder of the confident man he used to be. However, Carolyn later finds a tampon in the bathroom and confronts David. She is disappointed, reminding him that their relationship was special because it was free of drama and expectations. David quickly lies, saying the tampon must belong to one of the women George brings over. Carolyn doesn't believe him, But when David insists she's the only one he's holding on to, her anger softens. Despite this, David continues his relationship with Consuela. They go on a beach date, where he takes photos of her stunning beauty. She playfully mouths the words, "I love you," but David doesn't notice. Consuela wonders if he just doesn't want to hear it. Maybe that's the real problem. He's so taken by her beauty that he can't see her heart. Back home, David prints the beautiful photos in his dark room, unable to let go of her. He admits to himself that he needs Consuela like the air he breathes. They go shopping together, and on the way back, they see George at a restaurant with another woman. Consuela is disgusted, but David urges her to walk on, saying it's none of their business. Curious, Consuela asks for his opinion on George's affair. David admits he sees marriage as a flawed institution, using his own failed marriage as an example. A year passes, and David's relationship with Consuela continues to thrive. During a dinner date, she invites him to a party her parents are hosting to celebrate her graduation. David hesitates, having already turned down her last 2 invitations to meet her family. Frustrated, Consuela accuses him of hiding from her life. Eventually, he agrees to attend, which makes her excited. Later, David confides in George, expressing his fear of being judged by Consuela's family because of their age difference. George, however, insists it's time David faces the reality of their relationship. On the party day, David arrives but can't bring himself to go inside. He lies to Consuela that his car broke down. She sees through the lie and ends the call, heartbroken. Later, David hears her voicemail expressing her deep love and sadness, leaving him full of regret. David's son Kenny visits, confessing he's having an affair but can't leave either woman. David advises secrecy, but Kenny reveals he already told his wife and refuses to separate, fearing he'll destroy his family. Their strained relationship worsens. Days pass with no word from Consuela. David sinks into despair until George pushes him to move on and invites him to introduce a poetry reading. At the event, George collapses and later dies, leaving David grieving. After the funeral, David ends his long, shallow relationship with Carolyn, realizing it lacked meaning. 2 years later, David still struggles with loss. On New Year's Eve, Consuela calls with devastating news. She has breast cancer and surgery soon. She asks David to photograph her body to preserve the memory. David agrees, overwhelmed with emotion. He offers to support her through surgery, but she is scared. He comforts her as the new year begins. The next day, David can't stay away and visits the hospital to find out how she is doing. Kenny calls some people and tells David that the surgery is planned for the next day. David is shocked because Consuela had told him it was 2 weeks away. Kenny says the situation might be serious but can't give more details because Consuela is not his patient. David feels lost and very sad. Kenny gets a call and has to go back to work. Before he leaves, he asks about his own family and says they are still together. He also asks David what he plans to do about Consuela, but David doesn't know what to say. The next day, Kenny calls David to say that Consuela's surgery went well, and she has left the ICU. David rushes to the hospital without waiting. When David arrives, he goes straight to her side. Consuela has tears in her eyes. She tells him they had to remove her whole breast. She didn't think he would come because she feels she is no longer beautiful. But David tells her she is still beautiful. To cheer her up, David tells her a story about Amazon warrior women who cut off a breast to shoot arrows better. The story makes Consuela smile a little. She says she will miss him, but David promises he won't leave her this time. He gets into bed next to her and holds her warmly. And that's how our story ends. What did you think about the ending? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next breakdown.